In the Yu-Gi-Oh anime, decks are an extension of the character. The cards are multifaceted and can represent many things, including ideology, past traumas, interpersonal bonds, and core truths of the character. Nowhere in any Yu-Gi-Oh IP ever is this efficient method of indirect characterization on stronger display than in the case of major Duel Monsters arc villain, Gansley. The founder of the Big Five and former vice president of business strategy at KaibaCorp, Gansley is probably the best duelist across multiple animes and one of Yu-Gi-Oh's most important characters ever. This list is a little special in that it'll be including basically every card Gansley has ever played, because it would be deeply wrong to look over even one card used by the best character and person in all of Yu-Gi-Oh, Gansley. And starting off at number 10, we have Melchid, the Four-Faced Beast. This level 4 Dark Fiend has 1500 attack and 1200 defense, and first released into the TCG as part of the 2003 set A Labyrinth of Nightmare. Although it was technically part of the first wave of cards in the Mass Beast archetype, Melchid and fellow level 4 normal Grand Tiki Elder didn't really have a role to play in the 2007 special edition of Tactical Evolution, which brought Mass Beast Desgardius and the Mask of Remnants over from the OCG. Desgardius is a level 8 Dark Fiend with 3300 attack and 2500 defense that can only be special summoned by tributing 2 monsters with at least one of those tributes being Grand Tiki Elder or Melchid the Four-Faced Beast. Although we never saw Gansley use Mass Beast Desgardius in the anime, it's not surprising that after sharpening his mind through years of practicing business strategy, he saw the value in these cards. And he's not the only one either. Melchid the Four-Faced Beast actually has a few anime appearances. In episode 72 of the Duel Monsters anime, Melchid was used by Lumius in his tag duel alongside Umbra against the team of Kaiba and the Pharaoh. This alone should demonstrate the potential of this card, since challenging Kaiba and the King of Games to a tag duel is an objectively insane thing to do. But such is the power of Melchid that Lumius and Umbra were able to hold their own against powerful cards like the Blue Eyes White Dragon, Valkyrion the Magna Warrior, and even Obelisk the Tormentor. Additionally, Melchid the Four-Faced Beast was used by Lumis and Umbra's boss, Merrick Ishtar. In episode 90, Yami Merrick used both Melchid and Mass Beast Desgardius in his quarterfinals match against My Valentine, and Melchid would again be seen in his hand during the duel against Yami Bakura in episode 96. But Gansley would see the most value out of Melchid the Four-Faced Beast, however, using its 1500 attack to bypass the battle protection of Yugi's obnoxious Celtic Guardian during the duel in episode 100. In fact, the Pharaoh would fail to destroy Melchid, and this card only ever left the field because Gansley made the decision to combine Melchid and Wall of Illusion in a joint venture to summon Rainbow Serpent Iengana, a card we'll be talking about later. But while Melchid the Four-Faced Beast is a great card, and Gansley was wise to recognize this, it's usually remembered for its appearance during the Lumis and Umbra tag duel, and as such ranks at the bottom of this list of Gansley's most important cards. It was a smart play for him to recognize the assets of other powerful duelists which could easily become his own, but I'm going to save most of this list higher positions for cards that exclusively belong to Gansley. And washing up at number 9 is the field spell, a Legendary Ocean. First released in the 2003 set Legacy of Darkness, this field spell is another excellent example of Gansley's keen and strategic mind. While swimming in the Legendary Ocean, all water monsters gain 200 attack and defense, and also have their levels decreased by 1 while on the field and in the hand. This means that by using this card, Gansley undoes the tribute requirement of many power level 5 water monsters, including his own deck master, the Deepsea Warrior. Because the Legendary Ocean's name is always treated as Umi, while it's on the field, several of Gansley's monsters enjoy additional benefits. But it's good business not to get distracted, and we'll discuss the perks of these cards when it's their turn to take this list spotlight. Instead, let's talk about how a Legendary Ocean exemplifies another aspect of Gansley's strength, delegation. As Gansley would inform the Pharaoh during their virtual world duel, a good leader knows not just when to rely on the talent they assemble, but also how to support their employees to achieve the best results. In episode 111, when the entire Big Five were crammed into Tristan Taylor's virtual body for a confusing 1v2 kind of 5v2 tag duel against Joey Wheeler and Yamayugi, Gansley opened the duel by activating a Legendary Ocean. Not only did this benefit Gansley's personal strategies, but he knew that his underling, the former KaibaCorp accountant Adrian Randolph Crump III, used a deck made entirely of water monsters. This synergy allowed Team Big Five to put a strong opener against Team Yugioh Friendship. And at the number 8 spot, we have Wall of Illusion. This level 4 Dark Fiend with 1000 attack and 1850 defense debuted in the TCG as part of the 2002 structure deck Yugi. For the time, Wall of Illusion was actually really good, and it's still decently okay by modern standards. While its stats aren't incredible, 1850 defense is nothing to sneeze at. and 1000 attack isn't pitiful. But Wall of Illusion's effect is what makes this card a good defender. If Wall of Illusion is attacked by a monster, that monster gets bounced after damage calculation. With its defense exceeding the attack of many low-level monsters, setting Wall of Illusion can easily result in your opponent's monsters returning to your hand while your wall remains standing. This also doesn't target, making it useful for countering monsters with some forms of protection. But Gansley never activated this effect in the anime. In episode 100, he summons Wall of Illusion by using the effect of Ruklamba, the Spirit King, and then almost immediately offers it as a tribute for another stronger monster. It's a testament to the power of Gansley's deck that the effect of Wall of Illusion wasn't the best way for him to play the card, and that's also ultimately why it falls so low on this list. And flocking to the number 7 is Ashingray, a level 3 wind wing beast with 500 attack and defense that is somewhat known for its swarming potential and oblique angle of attack, but is mostly unknown, because this card doesn't exist in the TCG or the OCG and is instead a filler arc anime exclusive. In episode 99, Gansley employed 2 copies of Ashingray in his duel against the Pharaoh. After opening the duel by setting Ashingray number 1, Yugi found out about Ashingray's effect the hard way after attacking with his obnoxious Celtic Guardian. Firstly, Ashingray has a flip effect, and after Yugi's attack, the effect resolved, forcing a discard. In this way, Gansley was able to remove the threat of exchange from his opponent's arsenal, guaranteeing that his own assets couldn't be seized and turned against him. Following this, the second effect of Ashingray hit. On destruction by battle, Ashingray can activate from the grave to set another copy of Ashingray from hand or deck. Not only does this make Ashingray's removal a +1 in card advantage, it also primes another Ashingray to keep ripping out your opponent's hand, and that's just what Gansley did. On his turn, he flipped Ashingray number 2, causing Yugi to discard a copy of Dispel. Though weak on the field, Gansley knew that his Ashingray was protected by the Deckmaster's effect of Deepsea Warrior, allowing him to tribute 2 monsters to mimic the effect of Magic Cylinder, inflicting major damage to the Pharaoh following the attack declaration of Chimera, the flying mythical beast. While this would be the end of Ashingray's on-field appearances, a third copy can be seen in Gansley's hand during episode 100, and again in episode 104 as part of Joey's virtual world deck building scene, with final appearances in episodes 108 and 109 as part of Letcher's flashback to Seto's childhood. We all await the day when Ashingray finally makes its IRL debut. And rising from the great beyond of the forever ban list into spot number 6 is the equipped spell Premature Burial. Printing for the first time in the TCG with the 2002 set Feral Servant, Premature Burial would go on to become a mainstay of many future structure decks, as well as the Forbidden list. Right off the bat, Premature Burial is a really good card. It's hard to improve on Monster Reborn, but somehow Premature Burial does just that, using only undesired scraps from other cards' effects. First, you have to pay 800 life points to activate Premature Burial. While this isn't ideal, it doesn't stop the card from being bannably good, and that's because Premature Burial is also an equipped spell, and one that doesn't have to blow up its target when it leaves the field. This is critical because, though Mystical Space Typhoon and other destruction effects will spread the Premature Burial to the attached monster, if you're able to bounce your own Premature Burial back to your hand, your monster is spared. Even better, since Premature Burial can be activated as many times as you have the life points to pay, bouncing your Premature Burial means you can put it right back on the field with a new target. Sure, Monster Reborn can revive from your opponent's graveyard, but Premature Burial with the right cards can go infinite. As a result, Premature Burial was used a ton in decks before getting banned forever halfway through 2008. Dark Armed Dragon loved Premature Burial, Gladiator Beast loved Premature Burial, and Lightsworns loved Premature Burial too. Everyone was a fan. And Premature Burial would probably see play again if it were ever released into the TCG. But while Gansley chose not to dedicate resources to looping Premature Burial, he did know how to effectively utilize the revival spell to recur on summon effects. Ipiria is a powerful monster that we'll cover later on this list, and also Gansley's preferred premature target. A core tenet of business is knowing where to allocate your resources to maximize return on investment, and this was the principle that guided Gansley's use of Premature Burial. The Legendary Fisherman is a level 5 water warrior monster with 1850 attack and 1600 defense, and also the number 5 card on this list. First releasing the 2002 set Feral Servant alongside Premature Burial, this card is another example of Gansley's team spirit. After opening the Big 5 vs Yugi and Joey in episode 111 with a Legendary Ocean, Gansley followed up his field spell by normal summoning the Legendary Fisherman. This was a good play, because normally he'd need to tribute a monster for the Fisherman, but because a Legendary Ocean decreases the levels of water monsters in hand, he was able to go for a normal summon for free. And because the Legendary Ocean is always treated as Umi, the Legendary Fisherman got access to his effect. While Umi is on the field, the Fisherman is totally unaffected by all spells and cannot be targeted for attacks, although it can't prevent an opponent from attacking directly. While this has some negative synergy in that the Legendary Fisherman is made immune to the effects of Umi, and therefore unable to benefit from a Legendary Ocean stat boost, Gansley is able to circumvent his drawback, powering up his Fisherman by handing over the reins of Tristan's body to the Big Five accountant and lackey, Crump. The Nightmare Penguin, Crump's chosen deckmaster, powers up the attack of all water monsters by 200 points, allowing the Legendary Fisherman to climb to 2050 attack while remaining inoculated against spells. The combined assault of a Legendary Ocean and Fisherman force Yugi and Joey to expand powerful board breakers like Harpy's Feather Duster and Card Destruction, progressing the Big Five's win condition of using their combined might to overwhelm their opponents. There was probably a psychological edge in play here too, since Legendary Fisherman is a card that's special to Joey Wheeler. Per the anti-rules of Battle City, he received it after triumphing over Mako Tsunami. The backstory here is suggestive, since Mako received a Legendary Fisherman card as a letter from his missing father, a man who would probably be about Gansley's age. Supposedly, the letter and Duel Monsters card delivery was set in motion prior to Tsunami's senior disappearance at sea, but maybe that's just what Gansley wants you to think. It is possible that the father of Mako Tsunami led a double life as a shadow executive at KaibaCorp, eventually sacrificing his relationship with his beloved son in pursuit of corporate glory? We'll never know for sure, but that too is suggestive. A smooth operator like Gansley doesn't have loose ends. Maybe the real Deepsea Warrior and Mako's lost father were one and the same all along. And hissing up a storm at number 4 is Yowie, a level 3 Earth Reptile with 500 attack and defense that finally made its absurdly late release into the TCG as a secret rare in 2021's Brothers of Legend set, almost 20 years after its anime debut in episode 100 of Duel Monsters. Though it's not packing a ton of points, Yowie does have a very powerful effect. So strong it can only be activated once per duel. If Yowie and no other simultaneous cards is summoned, you can activate its effect to skip your opponent's next draw phase. Depriving your opponent of draws is one of the most cutthroat things you can do in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And Yowie's effect is not only balanced by the once per duel limitation, but also constrains you into only special summoning once on the turn you activate its effect. This means that the optimal play is often to normal summon Yowie to preserve the one special summon, and that's exactly what Gansley did. After locking the Pharaoh out of the next draw, Gansley used Premature Burial to summon Ipiria that we mentioned earlier, and we'll mention again further down the list. He would then tribute Yowie to use his Deepsea Warrior's Deckmaster's effect to Magic Cylinder Yugi's Obnoxious Celtic Guardian, dealing direct damage to the Pharaoh's life points. And there's actually another interesting element to Yowie. Inspired by Howie, an entity from Aboriginal mythology in Australia and Southeast, Yowie, together with Ashingray, based on volcanic bird cryptids said to collect souls from trees, form the basis of the mythological part of Gansley's deck. I'll have more to say about this later down the list, when I further argue that Gansley is Mako Tsunami's dad, but let's move on for now. At spot number 3, I offer a quick play spell from the 2003 set Labyrinth of Nightmare, Offerings to the Doom. This spell has a very simple and powerful effect. On activation, you can target one monster in the field and destroy it. There's a drawback, but it's a deferred consequence. If you play Offerings to the Doom, you have to skip your next draw phase, but that trade is easily worth it if Offerings lets you quickly finish the duel or stop your opponent from doing so. Gansley used Offerings to the Doom in episode 101 to destroy Yugi's fusion monster, Chimera the Flying Mythical Beast. While this did trigger Chimera's graveyard effect to revive Baphomet, it still cleared the board of a powerful threat. Offerings to the Doom is an interesting card. It's kind of similar to Tribute to the Doom, both in its name and their ability to destroy a monster, but since Offerings is a quick play spell, you have the flexibility to use it during your opponent's turn as interruption. Offerings to the Doom is one of those cards that had its OCG artwork censored for the TCG due to American cultural sensitivity around religious iconography. While the TCG version of Offerings showed a glittering table of treasure attended by a series of tombstones, the OCG version is a direct reference to the Christian Last Supper and practice of the Eucharist. But let's get back to Gansley. Even though he had to forego a draw phase to resolve Offerings, he's a shrewd businessman, and isn't going to pay a cost he can't recoup elsewhere, which actually is a nice lead-in to the number 2 card on this list. Ipiria is a level 2 Earth Reptile with 500 attack and defense that released with 2019's Battle of Legend Hero's Revenge, and is also Gansley's number 2 most important card. Like many good cards, including the previous Offerings to the Doom, Ipiria's effect is very simple, and stronger for it. When Ipiria is summoned, you draw 1 card. This is an easy +1, and Ipiria has seen competitive experimentation to complement the power of its effect. As a level 2, it fits perfectly into Sprite strategies. Since many Sprite main deck monsters share an effect that lets them special summon themselves from the hand once per turn, while you already control level 2 monster, they don't need to use the normal summon as long as you have another level 2. This has led to sprites frequently getting paired with the Runic and Life Twins, and also Ipiria for free draws. If you open Sprite Blue, Sprite Jet, or Sprite Starter, then Ipiria is also a starter, and one that lets you draw. The sprite's rank 2 XC's Gigantic Sprite can also summon Ipiria from the deck, which might be the optimal play for drawing into critical non-engine in situations where you already have access to the other sprites that you need. Since Ipiria's effect is once per turn rather than once per duel like Yowie, you do have the option of reviving a lost Ipiria to benefit from its effect once again. And this is how Gansley uses Premature Burial equip spell. Good play, Gansley. Ipiria also made an appearance in episode 145 at the beginning of the Waking the Dragons arc. As the Great Leviathan drew near, darts unleashed the sorcery of the Seal of Orichalcos on the world, causing Duel Monster spirits to manifest and terrorize their surroundings, including an Ipiria as part of the wave targeting Domino City. Like Yowie, Ipiria is also derived from an Australian Aboriginal myth. The actual Ipiria of legend is said to be a giant multicolored gecko with domain over the weather and storms in particular, which is pretty cool. Hey, wasn't Mako Tsunami's dad lost in a storm? But speaking of multi-hued reptiles, the number 1 spot on this list goes to Rainbow Snake Eingana, an anime-exclusive level 7 water sea serpent with 2200 attack and 2400 defense. Named Eingana, the serpentine god of Jawian Aboriginal mythology, Rainbow God Eingana fittingly holds power of life and death over every creature on the field. When the rainbow snake is sent to the graveyard, it destroys all monsters your opponent controls. Not only does this turn Foolish Burial and Snake Rain into Raigekis, but it also puts the Pharaoh in an almost unwinnable bind. If he wants to win, he must bypass Eingana. But if he destroys the Great Serpent, all of his monsters will be destroyed as well. This reflects aspects of the story of Eingana, who is connected by the thin sinew to all living creatures, and can end all life by choosing to sever that connection. Gansley first summons Rainbow Snake Eingana by tributing Melchid the Four-Faced Beast and Wall of Illusion, and quickly uses it to devour Yamayugi's birth from it, leaving the Pharaoh defenseless, and, were it not for the deckmaster power of Kuriboh, defeated. Luckily for Yamayugi, he's able to use his protagonist's powers to manifest Rainbow Blessing, another anime-exclusive card that lets him tribute the equipped monster to let his other monsters attack directly. Since Swift Gaia the Fierce Knight is the last card in his hand, he's able to normal summon it without tributing, and presumably the knight becomes his new deckmaster after Kuriboh's loss to activate the effect of Rainbow Blessing, which doesn't cause him to lose the duel for reasons one assumes. The very rules of the game twist around Yugi and allow him to eventually win over Gansley, but the Pharaoh never does destroy Rainbow Snake Eingana, making this one of the series' few undefeated monsters. And coming in at number 1 is the level 8 Dark Reptile, Ruklamba the Spirit King. This high-level monster might only have 1000 attack and 2000 defense, but its effects are so powerful it hasn't made the transition to the OCG or TCG yet. Hand traps are one of Yu-Gi-Oh's strongest categories of cards, and in the modern game, duelists win or lose by their ability to respond to their opponent's hand. Ruklamba, the Spirit King, is the second hand trap to appear in the anime, and another indication of Gansley's skill as a duelist. Before Ruklamba's introduction episode 100, the only hand trap in the Duel Monsters anime was Yugi's Kuriboh, a card that also featured heavily during the Gansley vs Yugi match. When you take more than 1000 battle damage in a single strike, Ruklamba, the Spirit King, is able to special summon itself from the hand, bypassing its typical steep tribute cost. The King of Games walked right into this trap by attacking Gansley with obnoxious Celtic Guardian, allowing the business tycoon to instantly field Ruklamba. But this Ruklamba didn't stay on the field for long. Using Ruklamba's second effect, Gansley was able to tribute Ruklamba the Spirit King to special summon any number of monsters from his hand that could add up to 2000 or less in attack. In one Ruklamba activation, Gansley was able to summon Wall of Illusion and another copy of Ruklamba the Spirit King. Notably, Ruklamba's anime effect has no limitations on its activation, meaning that if Ruklamba was printed without any changes, this card would probably see a lot of playing strategies that love swarming the field. Not only does Ruklamba's effect transform its low attack stat into a strength, but it also synergizes very nicely with other cards in Gansley's deck with on-summon effects, like Yowie and Ipiria. Ruklamba is so good that when Gansley made his sacrifices to summon Rainbow Snake Eingana, he kept Ruklamba on field over Melchid the Four-Faced Beast, despite the Spirit King having less attack. Of Gansley's anime-exclusive cards, a few have gone on to see printings, like Yowie and Ipiria. But though Ruklamba the Spear Beast hasn't gotten a physical printing, it's not technically anime-exclusive. It did appear in Yu-Gi-Oh! Destiny Board Traveler, and also Duel Monsters 8 Reshift of Destruction, both for the Game Boy Advance. In Reshift of Destruction, Ruklamba was a normal monster with flavor text reading, a reptilian creature that is said to be the ruler of all fairies. It is a rare being that is not commonly seen. Destiny Board Traveler provided a similar background, alleging that Ruklamba commands all the spirits. Few have witnessed his power. It's interesting that both descriptions allude to Ruklamba's elusive status, making it slightly fitting that this card has remained aloof from both the modern game and other major Yu-Gi-Oh! Platforms like Master Duel and Duel Links. And finally, the number one pick for Gansley's most important card is Five-Headed Dragon. This level 12 Dark Dragon Fusion has a generic material requirements of 5 dragon monsters, and is huge on field. With 5,000 attack and defense, Five-Headed Dragon easily clears Obelisk the Tormentor, an Egyptian god. First released into the TCG in Ultra Rarity as an exclusive promotional card distributed alongside the special editions of 2006 Structure Deck Dinosaur Rampage, Five-Headed Dragon saw wide release 5 years later as part of Gold Series 4 Pyramids Edition. To complement its premium stat line of 5,000 even, Five-Headed Dragon also cannot be destroyed in battle by dark, water, fire, wind, and earth monsters, one attribute for each of its 5 heads. This does leave a small vulnerability to attack in light monsters, but having battle protection at all when you have 5,000 attack is a little bit overkill anyway. But overkill is what Five-Headed Dragon is all about. This fusion dragon is not only Gansley's number one most important card, but the combined ace of the entire Big 5 corporate unit. But while control of Five-Headed Dragon is typically shared between Gansley and the other less Big 4, Gansley himself, as a leader of the Big 5, can claim the largest degree of ownership over this godlike creature. First encountered by the Duel Monsters gang in episode 45, the Big 5 were able to summon Five-Headed Dragon by performing live edits on the code of the virtual reality game where they had trapped the minds of Seto and Mokuba, as well as Joey Wheeler, Yugi, and Mai Valentine. Together, the heroes were able to muster their own dragons to challenge the combined might of the Big 5. Though Gansley and his lackeys were able to overpower this first onslaught of dragons, a double fusion play by Yugi and Kaiba, merging Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon and Blackluster Soldier into Dragon Master Knight, was able to contest and defeat the Five-Headed Dragon. Much later in episode 113, during Noah Kaiba's Virtual World arc, Yugi and Joey would encounter the Five-Headed Dragon again, which the Big 5 were able to summon by fusing their deck masters together. Though things looked tough for Yamayugi and Joey, they were once again able to slay the Big 5's most powerful beast through a combination of plot armor and making stuff up as they went along. By fusing their deck masters, the Flame Swordsman and Dark Magician together, Team Yugi and Joey were able to summon Dark Flare Knight and crash him into Five-Headed Dragon to bring out Mirage Knight during the same battle phase while evading defeat by leveraging Dark Flare Knight's super convenient battle damage immunity. Mirage Knight was then able to gain attack equal to Five-Headed Dragon's effect in addition to its 2800 baseline and attack into the Mythic Dragon. This worked because, for some reason, Mirage Knight is a light monster, even though neither Dark Flare Knight nor its materials were. But the fall of the Five-Headed Dragon was actually all part of Gansley's far-sighted strategy. After Mirage Knight completed its attack and vanished, the Big 5 activated a deal with the Dark Ruler to replace their toppled Deckmaster with Berserk Dragon. But what's important about both times the Big 5 called upon Five-Headed Dragon is that protagonist Yugimoto was never able to defeat the creature on his own. He might have triumphed over Pegasus, outplayed the Winged Dragon of Ra, and brought down the Seal of Orichalcos and Great Leviathan, but Five-Headed Dragon is in a whole other league. Actually, nothing illustrates the power the Big 5 have over the rest of the Duel Monsters anime more than the lore behind their names. Did you think an epic name like Gansley came out of nowhere? No, you fool. In the tradition of Roger Slifer, the executive Sky Dragon, Gansley is named for IRL 4Kids' former Vice President of Human Resources, John Gansley. Crump was likewise named for Malign Crump, the assistant to John Gansley, and most of the rest of the Big 5 have 4Kids connections too. Nesbitt was named after producer Sarah P. Nesbitt, and Letcher derives its name from 4Kids marketing director John Letcher. The final Big 5 member, former General Counsel Johnson, doesn't actually have a 4Kids counterpart, and that's because, unlike the rest of the Big 5, his name was first dropped in Season 1 instead of Season 3. And at number 1, it couldn't be any other monster. Gansley's most important card is Deepsea Warrior. This level 5 water warrior has 1600 attack and 1800 defense and first released into the TCG in the 2002 set Feral Serpent. While the Deepsea Warrior has seen no competitive play, that's probably just because Gansley is super ahead of the game and recognized the hidden powers of Deepsea Warrior before anyone else. While one of the many cards that become Umi are on the field, Deepsea Warrior becomes totally immune to spell effects. Did you think you were going to destroy Deepsea Warrior with Dark Hole? Hope you like losing 1600 life points from a Deepsea's direct attack. Did you want to make Deepsea Warrior your offerings to the Doom? Nice misplay. You are the doomed. Not only is Deepsea Warrior spell immune, but also synergizes with Gansley's chosen Umi, the field spell, a Legendary Ocean. One that allows Deepsea Warrior to drop its high level in hand for an easy summon without a tribute. As a deckmaster, this card also packs a very powerful ability. By attributing 2 monsters during damage calculation, deckmaster Deepsea Warrior copies the effects of Magic Cylinder, negating an opponent's attack while inflicting direct damage equal to the points of the attacking monster. But Deepsea Warrior is more than just a deckmaster, and more than just another card. On field, Deepsea Warrior's effect is remarkably similar to another important card in Gansley's arsenal. Remember the Legendary Fisherman? The card that represents Mega Tsunami's lost dad? Yeah, Deepsea Warrior and him share the same Umi spell immunity, a bond that makes more sense when you consider the unproven yet possible reality of Gansley's full name being John Gansley Tsunami. But let's dig into this more. Throughout every Yu-Gi-Oh series, the chosen cards and strategies of duelists reveal aspects of their character, and the Big Five are no exception. Crump's playstyle is careful and meticulous thanks to his accounting background, and he uses penguin cards because he has deeply concerning fixations. Nesbit, the robotic knight, is an extreme misanthrope whose worship of machinery is only rivaled by his disdain for the human condition, and so he uses machine monsters in support that converts the cards of his opponents into mechanical drones. Letcher's cards are all about investing points. Attack points, life points, he plays a numbers game. And Johnson, the legal expert, uses appropriately thematic cards like Leading Question, Sinister Justice, and Hysteric Fairy. Gansley is a bit of an anomaly here. His ideology is expressed to Yamayugi during the duel centered around the shrewd management of personnel. He treats his cards like employees and his dueling decisions like carefully constructed business moves. But while this all seems quite mundane, the cards he has chosen are anything but. Instead, they are largely mythical creatures and gods, suggesting that there is more to the character of Gansley than he allows outsiders to witness. Over the course of Noah's Virtual World arc, we get backstories for almost all of the Big Five. Letcher hates Seto because he believes himself the rightful heir to the Kaiba Empire. Nesbit hates Kaiba because Seto blew up his war crimes lab to pivot production into high-end gaming gear. Crump hates Seto Kaiba for shooting down his unhinged idea for a penguin amusement park. Johnson is just a manipulative and deceitful guy, but the details of Gansley's past remain shrouded. Perhaps intentionally. Perhaps because, in another life, he traveled the sea and reared a secret child. Was anyone ever under the impression that Tsunami was a real surname? The elusive and legendary nature of the monsters of Gansley mirror how Mako's dad has become a legendary figure to his son, the actual Legendary Fisherman. But the real Gansley is deeper than an idolized form dreamed up by his child. He is the Deepsea Warrior. And maybe one day he will rise from the oceanic depths of cyberspace to rejoin his family. Alright, and that's the list. But if you have uncovered more evidence that Gansley is the father of Mego Tsunami, or if you have more ideas for future videos just like this one, please let us know about them down in the comments.